Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a truly monumental and frankly, highly controversial transition happening right now in the world's largest democracy. For about 75 years, India has operated under a system where the most intimate parts of life, things like marriage, divorce, and inheritance, were completely governed by religious personal laws. But that's all changing. India is stepping into a massive legal paradigm shift, attempting to transition from a patchwork of religious rules to one uniform civil code. We're going to look strictly at the facts, the history, and the really deep divides this is causing, using our source material to guide us step by step. Okay, let's dive into this. Our roadmap for today starts with India's old patchwork system, followed by the triple talaq catalyst. From there, we'll break down the Uniform Civil Code itself, see exactly how marriage and inheritance are transformed, and finally, navigate the Great Divide. Let's start right in with Section 1, India's old patchwork system, a nation of many laws. To really understand this shift, you have to look at the timeline of how we got here, because it's quite a journey. When India won independence back in 1947, the country had just been torn apart by a religiously drawn partition. So, to reassure minorities, the founders left religious communities free to govern their own family laws. Then, in 1950, a unified code was actually suggested in the Constitution, but just left as an aspiration. For decades, this system remained an absolute political third rail. Just look at 1985 with the Shah Bano case. A simple alimony ruling sparked such a massive national firestorm that the government actually passed a new law just to placate conservative religious backlash. Fast forward to 2017. The Supreme Court cracks the foundation by ruling on divorce practices, which ultimately paves the way for 2025, where the state of Uttarakhand enacted the very first modern uniform civil code. Now, you might be wondering about that 1950 constitutional aspiration I just mentioned. That's known as Article 44. It's a directive principle stating that the state shall endeavor to secure a uniform civil code for all citizens. But here's the catch. The founders left this as a goal, not a strict command. Forcing a single civil code onto a fragile, impossibly diverse nation that was still bleeding from partition, that was deemed far too dangerous. So it basically just sat there on paper for nearly 75 years, like a landmine that no politician wanted to step on. And this brilliantly illustrates the human reality of that old patchwork system. Imagine two women born in the exact same hospital, raised on the exact same street. They could walk into adulthood with completely different legal protections. Their rights in marriage, divorce, and what they could inherit from their parents were decided not by their actions or choices, but literally by the specific faith printed on their paperwork. Which brings us to Section 2, the triple talaq catalyst, cracks in the system. For decades, the silence surrounding these separate religious personal laws held firm, but eventually that silence broke and it cracked over a single practice known as instant triple talaq. Under this Islamic tradition, a husband could divorce his wife instantly and irrevocably just by pronouncing the word talaq 3 times. And by the modern era, men were doing this via letters, phone calls, text messages, and even WhatsApp. There was absolutely no waiting period, no mediation, no court. A woman could find herself stripped of her marriage in the exact time it took to just read a text message on her phone. So in 2017, India's Supreme Court stepped in and ruled this practice unconstitutional. But the real turning point, that was in 2019, when the Indian Parliament passed a law doing what no government had dared to do before. They didn't just void instant triple talaq, they criminalized it, making it punishable by up to 3 years in prison. This was huge. It was the very first major state intervention into religious family law, proving that the wall protecting personal laws could actually be breached. Which leads us directly into Section 3, the Uniform Civil Code, the paradigm shift. The triple talaq ban was really just the warm-up. The state of Uttarakhand in India's north took the unprecedented step of actually climbing the mountain everyone else had avoided. They wrote and passed a uniform civil code, which came into force in early 2025. To grasp the sheer magnitude of this, you have to actively contrast the old reality with the new. Under the old patchwork system on the left, religious communities governed their own family laws. Hindus were under Hindu law, Muslims under Muslim personal law, Christians under Christian law. But look at the right. Under the new uniform code in Uttarakhand, one single civil process governs absolutely everyone. For the first time since 1947 in an independent Indian state, religion no longer determines your family law. The state does.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how we move to Section 4, Marriage and Inheritance Transformed. The truly fascinating part of this transition is how it takes a massive, abstract, theoretical debate and completely grounds it in everyday, granular changes to people's lives.
This right here hits the absolute core of our explainer. We're looking at the specific impacts on daily life. Under the old system, a Muslim man could legally take more than one wife, while that exact same act would land a Hindu man in prison. Under the new code, monogamy is strictly mandated for everyone, regardless of faith. Look at divorce. Previously dictated by varied religious texts, it is now completely standardized under one civil process. And crucially, look at inheritance. The old system often resulted in unequal fractions based on your gender and your faith. The new code steps in and guarantees equal inheritance shares for daughters, matching exactly what sons receive. It's literally a total rewrite of everyday family dynamics.
But there's a catch. The new code also contained a massive surprise in its fine print: mandatory live-in relationship rules. If you're a couple living together, you must now officially register your relationship with the government. You have to fill out long forms disclosing past relationships, and get this, if either partner is under 21, the state is legally required to notify their parents. Failing to register can actually become a criminal offense. Critics immediately flagged this, warning that while the law was sold to the public as a tool for equality, it effectively smuggled a vast system of moral policing and state surveillance right into citizens' private bedrooms.
And that, of course, brings us to Section 5, the Great Divide, Equality or Erasure.
This reform has split the world's largest democracy straight down the middle. We're going to break down the polarized reactions impartially, because both sides believe with total conviction that they're the ones defending freedom. To understand the raw political stakes, keep this number in mind: 200 million. That is roughly India's Muslim population. We're talking about 1 in 7 citizens. Rewriting centuries-old rules for a minority community of this sheer scale is a monumental undertaking with massive, massive political and social implications. So let's look at the arguments. The supporters of the Uniform Civil Code present a very direct argument. As one prominent leader put it, no Muslim woman wants to share her husband with 3 other wives. They argue that a single nation simply cannot have multiple legal standards. To them, ending things like polygamy and ensuring equal inheritance isn't an attack on religion at all. It's providing a long-overdue historic shield for women who were trapped in outdated rules and finally fulfilling the promise of a truly modern republic.
But the critics look at the exact same reform and see a profound threat. They ask a really difficult question. When the majority rewrites the rules that bind a minority and calls the result equality, who exactly is being made equal to whom? They point out that the practices being criminalized, like triple talaq and polygamy, are relentlessly focused on Muslim traditions. So, to critics, this isn't about liberation. It's the erasure of minority traditions and the forced imposition of majority rule, all just dressed up under the guise of fairness. So the crucial point is we have 2 immovable realities facing off. Supporters view this as fulfilling a modern republic's promise of true gender equality. Meanwhile, critics view this as a slow tightening of the screws on how a minority lives and worships. And this debate is rapidly expanding. Following Uttarakhand, the state of Gujarat passed its own code in March 2026, and Assam followed right after in May 2026. The reform is moving state by state, building undeniable momentum toward a potential national code. India is effectively volunteering to test one of the hardest questions of the modern world in real time at a scale that's almost unimaginable. Which leaves us with this final global question to ponder. As this dismantles a 75-year-old status quo, is India creating a brilliant blueprint for the rest of the world, or are they lighting an uncontrollable fuse? Should one country ever have one law for everyone, no matter the faith? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep asking questions, and I'll catch you next time.